Hey, this is Shaun with the Go Tennis Podcast, powered by Signature Tennis. Check out our calendar of Metro Atlanta tennis events at letsgotennis.com. And if you're a fan of Bull Shark Sports, go to shop.letsgotennis.com. Get yourself a hoodie or a hat. Today, this is Youth Sports Talk with Coach Ben Hestley. Today, Coach Ben wants to talk about asking more questions and listening more as parents and coaches. Ben, you ready to talk youth sports?
Yeah, let's dive in.
All right, today Coach Ben wants to talk about how you, coaches and parents, can create a habit of listening more and talking less. Ben, I get to ask the first question.
All
Where do
right.
you want to start?
I'm gonna start with a story, like we try to commonly do, and I'll try to keep it short because this is a show today about talking less. Kind of hard to have a talk show where you talk less, but it's something for me. I want to help coaches and parents and even parent coaches, those who are volunteering to coach their kids' teams, help them out with this because it is something that's really important. It's something for me I honestly work on all the time as a coach. And so the story is I'm a third base coach. I coach a middle school team, and I'm the third base coach. And a common job for the third base coach is to bark out orders at the base runners of what the situation is. Like there's, runner on second. You're like, hey, we got one out. All right, the ball's hit here. Stop. Make them commit to first. If it's a fly ball, freeze. If it's a ball hit way deep in right field, you can tag. Like a lot of orders that you're barking at these kids, at your players. And I've been really working on this more like check for understanding approach, this more approach of asking more questions than telling my players the information. So in this particular case, recently in a game, runners on second base, and this is a kid that I've been working with this on, okay, because he's somebody who clearly throughout his life has been told exactly what to do at every moment, and so he has a difficult time thinking for himself in game on the field. So he gets to second base. We got two outs. So I said, in my head, I'm like, I'm going to ask him how many outs we have. I'm not going to tell him. I'm going to try to make this a habit for me. I'm trying to make a new habit for coach. I'm going to ask him. So I said, hey, buddy, how many outs do we have? And he goes, one. And I hear his dad from the stands, oh, it's two outs. Like he clearly heard what I was saying. And I was like, yeah, we have two outs. Like, okay. And so what was funny about that is I literally saw the light bulb come over this kid's batting helmet. I mean, it was like he had awakened. I mean, like usually he's just being told what to do and tries to follow suit. Now he's having to think out there, and it actually made him learn more. And I think it resonated with him more that I asked the question of how many outs we had versus just telling him how many outs we had. And then his problem solving skills, I definitely saw just upticked in that moment, or maybe not problem solving, but definitely the ability to think for himself and recognize, oh crap, I didn't know the situation. Now I've been called out on it. I need to pay attention more.
But wouldn't that be the starting point of problem solving is understanding the situation, whether it's a problem or not, problem solving being a figure of speech, of course. But in this case, if the kid's just standing there and he's used to everybody telling him what's going on and what to do next, which isn't uncommon in baseball scenarios, that
Right.
I really appreciate you as a coach considering, hey, how do I draw this out? And you talk as a coach about a push pull. Where do you usually go with that? How do you play with that?
Yeah, it's just kind of the push pull continuum I talk about. So what that means? Push on one end would be I'm constantly just telling the player information, just barking orders, telling them exactly every move to make, whether it's in practice or in a real game. And then the pull is the other end of the spectrum, which is asking a lot of questions, kind of your Socratic method, if you will, trying to pull information from them about what they know about the situation. Again, whether it's the game, the sport itself, the specific drill we're going to do in a practice setting. And I like to live along that line, along that continuum, because while we do want to ask more questions and while we do want to talk less as coaches, I mean, some of the best, I mean, I spend my life watching coaches coach, both as a coach developer and just a lifelong learner. I love watching coaches coach. And what I've found is some of the best coaches don't talk that much and they ask a lot of questions, but they also do give information. The information they do give is very meaningful and purposeful to the athlete that they're coaching, But that's where I try to live. You're not always going to ask questions. Sometimes there's time constraints and you have to just quickly give them information. But where do we live along that continuum? Are we pushing our information on these kids, or are we pulling more information, trying to gain more insight and push some of the ownership on them?
That sends us back to a recent conversation about responsibility as well, because I picture the kid learning to tie his shoes. If you always just say, okay, we're late, let's get in the car, you tie the kid's shoes every time because you're always late, the kid's not developing, you're doing the work for them. It's a similar concept here where when I get to second base and I look over at Coach Ben, I know what his first question is going to be. So I'm going to go check the board or find out wherever I need to find out how many outs there are, because hopefully there's a big scoreboard up there that tells me. Where in tennis we don't have that. I've got to know whether or not it's 15:30. And
Well,
in
sometimes it's
basketball,
wrong. It's usually a parent volunteer doing it. So if their parents volunteer is not paying attention, there's one out, and there's really is there's no outs on the board because they didn't press the button, and but there's actually one out. Yeah,
there's
yeah, don't
that.
trust the
I'm
scoreboard
also going
sometimes.
to
Those
look at,
mistakes happen all the time.
yeah, but I'm going to look at the board and be like, look, one out, coach. What do you want from me? At
Yeah,
least I'm
exactly.
doing the work now to catch myself up on the situation, to work on my problem solving skills.
Yeah, yeah. No, knowing the situation is great. I mean, that also happened to me as the coach. The scoreboard was wrong. It said 3 balls and 1 strike. We had the bases loaded. The count was actually 2-1. Luckily, the our runner at third knew it was a 2-1 count. It's a pass ball, so there's bases loaded. So pass ball, I think it's ball four.
Mm-hmm.
My guy just sprints home to score on a pass ball, and I'm like, what are you doing? Slow down. It's
Oh
like,
yeah.
and he's like, no, there was only 2 balls. I'm like, and I asked the umpire. He goes, oh yeah, it was a 2-1 count. I'm like, oh, I was wrong. Glad my player was right in paying attention, that he knew the situation and knew to advance home on a pass ball because it wasn't ball four.
And I think, and I'll talk to the coaches and the parents directly at this point. I think we can learn from you here, Ben, because it was your fault that I am now reading with my family Mindset by Carol Dweck. And
Oh
that's
yeah.
really messed with my whole worldview. And when I think of the kids and the development and how they want to learn and how they want to get better, that's one thing. It's another thing when the coach is that way. And we use phrases like lifelong learner, and many of those, in my opinion, are just bumper stickers. But
Yeah.
when you really say, hey, I was wrong, or you know what, I'm going to try this new development model on this kid right now. And we're not just testing them like lab rats, but we're improving. When we learn how to deal with kids in these situations and how to help them improve quicker, better, more efficiently, whatever it is, I think that's a phenomenal example that you're setting for the kids. But in this case, because of shows like this, you're also setting that example for other coaches and parents.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. I mean, I try to continue to evolve. We're always going to have our philosophies, but as the old saying goes, philosophies, there are few, of methods, there are many. And your job as a coach and a parent really is to find that method that's going to help that kid in that particular moment. And sometimes it's sitting back and letting them swing and miss a bunch and just process,
Yep.
just process. And I've talked before about how I'm in the batting cage pitching balls to this kid, and mom or dad is on the sideline, literally living and dying by every swing. And it's like, hey, this was a great lesson. He swung and missed the ball. He only hit the ball, made contact 2 out of 10 times, but he learned so much about his swing and how to hit and hand-eye coordination and coping skills as well. It's hard. It's tough. Playing sports is not easy. And especially nowadays, right? And so the sandlots are gone. Kids don't really get out and play much outdoors anymore on their own and kind of organically learn these skills. And so they have to go to an organized situation to learn them. And it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of practice. But sometimes the practicing is just them processing and making mistakes over and over with the coach guidance, of course. It's not the set it and forget it thing where I just like, here's the drill. I'm going to be over here drinking coffee. You guys figure it out. There's some nudging that goes along with that, but sit back and watch and let them process the situation, the challenge that they're presented.
Yeah, I think that's great. And that's another scenario. We're not suggesting talking less means doing less work. So if
Right.
you're a coach or you're a parent and your job is to supervise, be involved, and help these kids progress, figure out how much you can accomplish by asking a question. Don't just say, well, the guys on YouTube told me I should talk less, so I'm just going to stand here, fold my arms, and nod and be that guy. That's not what we're suggesting either.
No, I like to use the term facilitator. I think of myself
Sounds
as a
fancy.
as a what?
Sounds fancy.
It is fancy, fancy word, right? I'm facilitating. So if I'm running a camp or big practice, one-on-one private situation is different, although there will be some constraints that you give the child. Hey, I want you to work on this. Here's the drill, whatever. But in terms of like a large group setting, I feel oftentimes like I'm more of a facilitator than a coach or an instructor. I'm presenting the group with a series of drills, progression of drills, or a game-like scenario, and their job is to work through that. So not a lot of individual coaching necessarily going on, but you create the situation for them to learn and problem solve through that situation. So I think a lot of that is, and you see high level coaches that do that. They create the environment for the learning to happen more so than trying to teach and give information to each player.
And in that case, if it works, you can walk out onto the field, call everybody in and say, why did it work? As opposed to telling them how great it worked.
Yeah.
Or if it doesn't work, call everybody in and say, why didn't it work? And let them try to figure that out, especially in a team atmosphere. Maybe you got one kid who's, smarty pants and he's going to have the answer, but you're still giving everybody a chance to have input in that and think about, well, yeah, why did that work? And I think that would be good for everybody. Ben, you got final advice for me? If you can tell the parents and coaches, kind of boil it down for us.
Um, I would just say that we all need to keep in mind that the kids are the players. They're the ones playing the game, not us. We can help them with it, but at the end of the day, they've got to field the ground ball and throw it to the right place. They've got to swing the bat. They've got to make the shot. They've got to pass to the open teammate. They're the ones that have to do the work in the game. And we need to provide an environment that helps them learn how to do that and take more ownership of that so that they are able to do it on their own. Because at the end of the day, in game, we can't do it for them. So they have to learn to do it for themselves.
There we go. Thank you, sir. Ben, this is Ben. Ben, this is Ben.
Yeah.
Ben, this is Ben. Youth Sports Talk with Coach Ben Hesley. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. We'll see you next week.
All right. Have a good week, everybody.